Huh? Getting ready for tomorrow already, huh? Okay. Let's see what happens. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. There will be some discussions today. At least the plan is to hear from our previous acharyas, their inspirations and teachings and messages to take shelter of in relation to chanting of the holy name. You're all familiar. This is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Takur, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master. He had a practice during the Chaturmasya months that he accepted certain austerities. One of them was not shaving. And then another one was he ate one meal a day. And his one meal a day was khichdi without salt. And he put his hands behind his back and then leaned over and ate with his mouth only. And he wouldn't sit up because when he sat up, that meant that was it. So when you lean over, your stomach shrinks. So for 4 months, that was his program. It's a nice way to lose weight. But it's an austerity, it's not for the purpose of losing weight, it's for the purpose of uh, Chatur Masya Vrata. And he did this for his adult life every year. So sometimes we see him with a beard like this, the Chaturmasya months. To give us some background of appreciation of his absorption in the chanting of the holy name, he was a Superman when it comes to chanting of the holy name. The history, his Nama Bhajan goes back to a time when he was around 30 years old. His father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, was living in a place, Bhajan Kutir place. It was an apartment, but it was very proximate to the Samadhi of Haridas Thakur. Maybe some of you have been to Puri. You know where the ISKCON temple is. It's the same place where Bhaktivinoda Thakur did his vratas. And about 75 yards or 100 yards away, short walk, is the Samadhi of Haridas Thakur, the very place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dug up the sand and placed his body within that hole in the sand and put salt and the whole procedure of placing the body of Haridas Thakur. And right next to the Samadhi of Haridas Thakur was the Bhajan Kutir of Radha Raman Charan Das Babaji, who during Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time, he was a celebrity, or he was a very, 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 that was 3 varies, respected personality. Babaji in Jagannath Puri. There were different Babajis at different times in Puri and Vrindavan, etc. However, when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Takur was visiting him, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he came to know that this Radha Raman Charan had a certain practice or two practices that he took exception to. It's in the biography of Bhaktisiddhanta's life. One of those practices was he made up another mantra. And the other mantra, according to Bhaktisiddhanta's erudition, was Rasabhas. Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam Hari Krishna Hari Ram. That was his mantra. And the other practice that he had a follower, I forget his follower's name, but he was training his follower to enter into the mood of the gopis, so he dressed his male follower in the dress of a gopi and gave him a gopi name. And it has a name that's called Saki Beki. It's an imitation of, the notion, at least that certain persons had, he was one, that you can practice being a gopi by dressing as a gopi and behaving as a gopi, and that way you develop gopi bhav. Bhaktisiddhanta took exception. And his nature is he didn't remain quiet. He spoke. He arranged a discussion with Radha Ramancharan on these two practices. And the consequence of his confrontation, because he would do that sometimes, not always, but he did it in this case, it created an uproar in Jagannath Puri because he was a celebrity. And he's confronting a celebrity, and there's not a description of exactly how the exchange went, but it wasn't happy. There was such a turmoil over his confronting a deviation from proper practices and teachings that Bhaktivinoda Thakur made a suggestion. He says, Father, my dear son, this is too much. It's causing too much turmoil here in Jagannath Puri. Why don't you go to Mayapur, Puri, go to Mayapur and just chant Hare Krishna? So he accepted that recommendation of his father, and at the age of 31, for 9 years, count them, 9 years, he took a vow that I, Bhaktisiddhanta, will chant the holy name nonstop until I've chanted 1 billion names. You can do some math. 1 billion names by his practice took 9 years, 3 times 64 rounds daily. Tomorrow we'll be attempting 64 or more is fine, and some less is also fine. But 64 rounds is a bit of a challenge for some. And he would chant 3 times 64 rounds a day, which is the same number as Haridas Thakur, for 9 years. I'm explaining this to give us some appreciation of his realization of chanting of the holy name, his absorption in the holy name, and things that we're going to point out that he has written about the chanting of the holy name. He has realization. So we're hearing from a realized person. Initially, when he went to Mayapur, he resided in a grass hut at the Yogpith. What's the Yogpith? It's the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his father, discovered by a wonderful mystical arrangement where the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was. And he, Bhaktivinoda, built a little temple and assigned his son to build a substantial temple, which is still there. So he went to the Yogpith and stayed in a grass hut for 4 years, keeping this vrata. The photograph you see at the top is after the first 4 years. In February of 1909, just to give us a picture of the chronology of things, he built a little cottage next to the house of Chandrasekhar Acharya. Some of you are a little familiar with Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chandrasekhar Acharya was the uncle of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chandrasekhar Acharya had a home, and his home is now part of Chaitanya Mat, Chaitanya Gaudiya Mat, which became, in course of time, the headquarters of Bhakti Siddhanta, and of the 64 mats was he had his headquarters. A house was built, etc., etc., and then the deity. You'll see the deity shortly. So, in for 5 years, he stayed at a house next to Chandrasekhar Acharya's place. Now, it was a little cottage. Now it's like a little temple. And we'll get a close-up picture of what's inside that little temple. But, at that time, it was very rustic, the cottage. So it took him 16 hours per day for 9 years. So 192 rounds, do the math, and it comes out to about 5 minutes per round. I can't chant one round in 5 minutes, but he did, times 192. And this he did for 9 years. You do the math, and it comes out to 1 billion names. Here's the current, this is very recent photograph of the place where he stayed doing this vrata next to the house of Chandrasekhar Acharya. And in course of time, he established this as his headquarters. There's a very nice story behind the establishment of the deities of Gandharvaka Giridhari. Maybe some of you know the story. He was interested in having Radha Krishna deities for his headquarters. And so he went to Jaipur to search for a deity that he felt was an appropriate deity for his headquarters. And he saw a particular deity that he liked. And he spoke to the carver of that deity, and it was already promised to someone else, or the Krishna deity was promised to someone else. So he was a little disappointed. And he went home to wherever he was staying in Jaipur. The Murti carver that night had a dream. In his dream, this deity that you see on the screen appeared to him as dream. Said, that sadhu that wanted to bring me to his temple, I want to be worshipped by him. Please make the arrangement. So now the carver had to find where Bhakti Siddhanta was, somewhere in Jaipur. And he found him, and he informed him what the deity told him in his dream. So he was very happy. He purchased the deity. There's Radharani, Radhika, Gandharvika Giridhari, and then Mahaprabhu by his side. So if you go to Mayapur, I'm sure you'll visit the headquarters of Bhakti Siddhanta, and you'll see this deity. And one of the things that years have passed, but when I first went, on the four corners of the temple, it's not a big temple. It's not, like it's a big temple. It's a shrine. It's a shrine, and it's there's a little mandap in front of the altar, but you can walk around the deities very easily by design. And on the four corners were the four Sampradaya Acharyas, because one of the strong points of Bhakti Siddhanta was to bring the sampradayas together. And his teaching was that Lord Chaitanya did that. Lord Chaitanya wanted that. And you can read, because there's a whole book just on this topic that he wrote. And what are the teachings of each of the four? And that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu drew 2 teachings from each of the 4, making 8, as pillars of his teachings, with the idea, not exactly he just kind of fabricated something by taking 2, 2, and 2, and 2, but his teachings unite all sampradayas. And that was so that's part of his teaching, and it's a big gesture, because it's really easy to see differences and feel if we're right and that's different, so they can't be right because it's different. He wanted to bring unity while respecting differences, unity and diversity, in other words. And Srila Prabhupada, of course, following Bhakti Siddhanta, did the same. Now, one of the things that Bhakti Siddhanta did during his life was write books. And another thing that he did was he had correspondence. And much of that correspondence has been captured. And in this Amrita Vani, and they're published. And they're a devotee friend of mine, Prabhupada disciple, gave me what you see, because it's one letter in different parts, just about chanting. So I'll try to go slowly, but it's inspiration in the matter of Bhakti Siddhanta's transcendentalness, explaining about chanting. So if you want some inspiration here from a realized person, Bhakti Siddhanta. I am overjoyed to hear that your enthusiasm for chanting is increasing. As our contaminations are removed by chanting the Lord's form in sequence, form, qualities, and pastimes will be revealed to us in the holy name. Bhaktivinoda Takur wrote the same. It's in Harinam Chintamani. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila in sequence. To do it again. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila. So those who are very fortunate to become immersed in the chanting of the holy name, the Lord reveals himself in the holy name. It's not like over there is the form and over here is the name. But the form is within the name. Krishna and Krishna's form are non-different. Krishna's form and Krishna's name are non-different. So the form of Krishna becomes revealed if Krishna so desires. And then his qualities and his pastimes, very advanced, realized souls have the capacity, by Krishna's mercy, to experience Krishna's pastimes. There's a nice example of this. When we get to Sanatana Goswami, you'll hear about it. Rupa Goswami, it's in Bhakti Ratnakar. You've heard of that book? Bhakti Ratnakar. Bhakti Ratnakar. It's a book written about the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's departure. So Chaitanya Charitamrita is during his presence, and authoritative is accepted as a very authoritative literature, Bhakti Ratnakar. And in that Bhakti Ratnakar, there's a nice description of something you'll hear, but the detail of, but the principle is that our acharyas experienced Krishna's pastimes within his holy name. Wasn't fiction, wasn't Harry Potter, It was their realizations, their direct experiences of Krishna's pastimes through the medium of sound, just like last night, and specifically names of the Lord. So he's stating it here to this devotee that he's writing to. As our contaminations are removed, small thing, by chanting, the Lord's form, qualities, and pastimes will be revealed to us in the holy name. In the holy name. There's no point in making separate effort to artificially remember the Lord's form, qualities, and pastimes. This is a big thing, because during his time, it was a notion, Lila Smarana is called. It was a practice, cultivating the practice of remembering. So Bhakti Siddhanta is gently dismissing that cultivation through practicing remembering the Lord's form, qualities, and pastimes. The doorway is the name. Successfully enter that doorway, and no need, no point making a separate effort. The others. The Lord and his name are one and the same. This will be understood clearly when, once again, the coverings in your heart are removed. He said it in the previous sentence. By chanting without offenses, you will personally realize that all perfections come from the holy name. So this is the Japa retreat to help us make incremental steps in this direction towards perfection. That's if you want it. That's the doorway. Through chanting, the distinction that exists between the self and the gross and subtle bodies is gradually effaced, and one realizes one's own spiritual form. One's aware of the spiritual body. As one continues to chant, one sees the transcendental nature of the Lord's form. It's a GPS, and turn left, turn right. It's a roadmap how to get to perfection. And it's not all the details. Of course, in his writings, he goes into more details, but this is just a letter. And one comment I'd like to make is his language. This isn't so difficult language, because sometimes he would write in very difficult language. But this word effaced, what does it mean? I know the application of effaced. One of its applications is when you rub coins together, they become old, and coins rub against coins, rub against other coins. And the imprint on the coin is indistinguishable after some time because it becomes effaced. You can no longer distinguish the date on the coin, the face on the coin, whatever other words imprinted on the coin, because it becomes effaced. So similarly, there's the soul or the self, and then there's coverings, gross and subtle bodies. The distinction gradually becomes effaced. And as that effacing occurs, one's own spiritual form. The soul has form, the name has form, the soul's form gradually, as the distinction that exists between the self and the coverings becomes effaced, then one can realize one's own spiritual form. One's aware of the spiritual body. As one continues to chant, one sees the transcendental nature of the Lord's form. So he described earlier seeing the Lord's form, qualities, and pastimes. Now he's going back and saying one realizes one's own form and then the Lord's form. It's nice. It's very clear instruction. Only the holy name reveals the spiritual form of the living being and then causes him to be attracted to Krishna's form. Causes him to be attracted to Krishna's form. Only the holy name reveals the spiritual qualities of the living being and then causes him to be attracted to Krishna's qualities. Only the holy name reveals the spiritual activities of the living being and then causes him to be attracted to Krishna's pastimes. Very clear. By service to the holy name, we do not, this is important, we do not mean only the chanting of the holy name, semicolon. It also includes the other duties of the chanter. Important. If we serve the holy name with body, mind, and soul, then the direction of that service spontaneously manifests. The direction of that service spontaneously manifests like the sun in the clear sky of the chanter's heart. I mean, it's poetic, but just to give us a sense, the sun rising in the clear sky of the heart. The direction that we should follow in our spiritual realization becomes revealed. So meanwhile, we chant, and this particular sentence is saying chanting means the other activities connected with chanting are service, body, mind, words, service. And if we serve body, mind, and soul side by side with chanting, then this is a sign or an indication or a marker on their journey to get to the destination. And that is the direction of our service spontaneously manifests like the sun in the clear sky of the chanter's heart. What is the nature of the holy name? Eventually, all these understandings spontaneously appear in the heart of one who chants the holy name. The true nature of Harinam is revealed by listening to, reading, and studying the scriptures. It is unnecessary to write anything further on this subject. All these things will reveal to you through chanting. Powerful, huh? And just step back. This is the person who chanted the same number of rounds as Haridas Thakur for 9 years. Again, 64 rounds tomorrow, times 3, every day for 9 years. So the place that these teachings are coming from is a place of realization. Because you can't do what he did without being empowered, and being empowered, connecting to the holy name. It's realization. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Takur ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This little set of images and his letter to a disciple, a god brother of mine sent it to me, and he said he regularly, not necessarily every day, but regularly goes through each of these slides as a guide or a meditation in how to take up the chanting of the holy name, inspiration, instruction, guideline. So I'm sharing it with you. Same way. This letter is found in a book that was published by the Gaudiya Math called Amrita Vani. And Amrita Vani has different sections. I'm going to show you some of them, the ones specifically that are about, or some of the ones specifically about the holy name. The holy name is by nature eternal and full of knowledge and bliss. By the holy name's mercy, a living entity revives his spiritual consciousness. Same passage. Sri Krishna, who is the reservoir of all transcendental pleasure, manifests in a heart filled with simplicity before eyes that have been fully spiritualized, on a tongue inclined to his service, and in an ear inclined to hear Krishna Katha. Same passage. The holy name manifests in those senses that are engaged only in pleasing his senses. That was one section from Amritavani. Here's another. Just because mundane thoughts appear in the mind while we chant the holy name does not mean we should slacken our chanting. It's very practical. The useless thoughts will gradually disappear as the irrevocable fruits of chanting the holy name. Do not be in a hurry. Meaning, be patient. Be kind to yourselves. Be patient. Don't be overly patient. Continue to be enthusiastic, but utsahan nishchaya dhairyat. We have to be enthusiastic and also patient and perseverant. Another from this same source, Amritavani. His words are so clear. The distance between ourself and our gross and subtle bodies gradually diminishes. This is this word effaced. When we chant the holy name, and we soon revive awareness of our original constitutional position. Language is different, the same message. When we are thus self-realized, that was pretty quick, the Lord's pure holy name will manifest in our heart, and we will directly see Sri Krishna's transcendental form. Now, he's saying this several times. We can take it that that was his experience. Somebody long ago gifted me one of those little playback devices with all of the recorded material of Srila Prabhupada. All the recorded material. I mean, so far I'm on 1,680 recordings. And just this morning, I was listening to Srila Prabhupada having a conversation with Professor Durkheim. The name is familiar for some of you, maybe. A German professor who liked Prabhupada very much. And Prabhupada liked him very much. And he was a very sincere man. And one of his repeated themes, he kept saying it, asking it so many times. He wanted not just a concept, he wanted to experience. Prabhupada was emphasizing knowledge, and Durkheim was emphasizing experience. So knowledge is necessary to get the experience, and we act in knowledge. What is Prabhupada's teaching is very simple. When you act in knowledge, you get a realization. When you act in knowledge, jnana vijnana. When you act in knowledge, if you don't act in knowledge, you have to act in knowledge. And not just have knowledge, but act. You know and you do what you know. And you do it consistently. And then comes the experience. But the experience starts with hearing. So we're hearing from Bhakti Siddhanta several times the effect, the experience from chanting sincerely in the ways that he's describing. This is the last slide. Chant the Mahamantra loudly and with attachment. This will drive away inertia, worldly ills, and disturbances. Not too loudly. Here, especially when we're in the temple room having our 64 round day, we don't chant too loudly. But there is, maybe you've heard, there is some discussion about audibility of chanting. Should you chant in the mind? Should you chant softly? Should you chant audibly? Well, here's Bhakti Siddhanta's conclusion. I will touch on this going forward a little bit, but there's a nice passage, for example, in Chaitanya's Mahaprabhu's Mahaprakash Leela. Some of you know what that means. He revealed his divinity at the house of Srivas Takur. One time they were having kirtan at night and evening at the house of Srivas Takur. And all of a sudden, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the kirtan, sat on the altar, and said, "Worship me." He was showing his divinity. And one by one, he brought the devotees forward and revealed to them their spiritual identities and their activities in those spiritual or activities that took place in their life, in this life, that nobody knew, but he knew. So he was displaying his divinity. And one of the persons he wanted was Kolovich or Sridhar. Some of you have been to Mayapur. You know Kolovich or Sridhar's residence is quite some distance down Bhakti Siddhanta Road. And he sent the devotees to find him and bring him. There are no street lights. There's no lanterns even. So you just follow the sound, he said. Just follow the sound and you'll find him. Because all night long, Kulavechar Sridhar was chanting the holy name audibly. That's one very nice reference about audible versus, there's different Sanskrit, mumukshu, just whispering. So that's okay. Some people like that kind of chanting. And here Bhakti Siddhanta and Kolavechar Sridhar and Haridas Thakur, some discussion in Chaitanya Bhagavat, chanting audibly. They were criticizing. The name should not be heard. There are different ideas in Vaishnavism, different ideas in different religions. You can't utter the name of God because it's too holy. So don't utter the name of God. So there was some discussion, criticism of Haridas because he was chanting audibly. And then he explained why he chants audibly. There's different reasons, but one he gave is it's beneficial not only for you, but other living entities that hear the holy name. And as we go forward, we'll hear some more of that. The audible chanting gives benefit to the hearer, yourself, and others. Not so loudly that you disturb everybody or others, but audibly. That's recommended. And here we have it. I'll read it again. Chant the Mahamantra loudly and with attachment. This will drive away inertia, worldly ills, and disturbances. So there's some nice teachings, just sharing with you this morning. Nice teachings from Bhakti Siddhanta on the importance of chanting of the holy name and ways of chanting the holy name, the fruit of chanting. It's very inspiring, especially if you want to know who you are. It's very inspiring. You want to know who is Krishna. It's very inspiring. Not only know, but experience, like Professor Durkheim was saying. So let's see if there's some discussion. Yes. What does it mean by inertia? Yes. Inertia in spiritual terms means there's another nice Sanskrit term, laya, means laziness or sleep. In there's a book written by Vishwanath Chakravarti Takur called Madhurya Kadambini. You've heard the title. Some of you may have heard the title. Madhurya Kadambini. It's a very nice book. The theme of the book is elaborating on the 9 stages of bhakti. Following Rupa Goswami, there's 9 stages of bhakti. And in the process of going from where we are to where we want to go, there's a stage called nishtha, which means steadiness. And so there's anarthas that are in the heart that arise from 4 different sources. And as one becomes more proficient in performance of bhakti, anarthas become eradicated, anartha nivritti. And in the upper realm of anartha nivritti, before steadiness, there are 5 obstacles. And one of them is this one, this inertia one. Laziness, sleep. There's others like distraction, but you're not sleeping. But it's the mind and the body become lethargic. You can say influenced by the lower modes of nature, and that's inertia. So inertia or that lower mode influence can be overcome. Laya can be overcome. Now, one strives to connect with Krishna, just like put up the voltage, and you get more electricity. The holy name has all potency, but the coverings of the soul, gross and subtle, are such that we may not experience the fullness of that potency of the holy name. That's inertia. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the enlightening class. The word effacing that was mentioned, effacing,
Effacing.
effacing.
Yeah.
So, does that mean the purification of the mind? That when we say one is able to experience the soul, are we saying the mind is now purified and hence?
Not just the mind, coverings, plural. There's gross and there's subtle coverings. So and the word that you used is purification. The word that Bhakti Siddhanta used, it's not a wrong word, but the distance between the soul or the self and those coverings, there's a big gap. So the gap they diminish. The coverings influence diminishes to the point where they're not influencing anymore, or the distinction between them is not so prominent. That's effacing. You can say purification. Then what does that mean? So I'm just elaborating on what that means.
And then it says that once first you experience your soul, and then you experience the Lord's spiritual form. So that's Paramatma. Is that what is?
Not necessarily. The Lord's spiritual form can mean Radha Krishna. depends on one's heart's orientation. The Lord reveals himself according to one's heart's orientation.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for the class. My question is that uh, is subtle body is chanting or soul chanting?
Say it again.
Is the subtle body is chanting or the soul chanting?
Your question is, when chanting, is it the soul that's chanting or is it the body that's chanting? That's your question?
Subtle body, yeah.
Well, what do you think? I'll give an answer, but I want to hear what you think.
I'm in the confusion state. Like the subtle
Slowly.
body consists of intelligence and
Speak
mind.
slowly. What?
I'm in the confusion, right? The
You're
subtle
in
body.
confusion. So what if you remember from last night, the mysteries of sound presentation. When there's sound, the lips and the tongue are making a sound. And if the sound is spiritual, then it's the soul, because sound is within of the spiritual sound is already within. So they're both, but there's the instrument that makes the sound. And then there's the soul that's making a connection with Krishna, or reestablishing the connection with Krishna. So it's both, not just one or the other. And therefore the body, gross and subtle, becomes spiritualized, or he was using the word purified. The distinction, this effacing word, that this identifying identification with the covering becomes reduced. So the mouth is, and the tongue, the air, the vocal cords, et cetera, et cetera. All those things are working when chanting. So they're chanting, but behind it is something, the soul. You can say both.
Thank you, Maharaj.
You want to say something more?
No,
You're pausing. You're okay. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much. It's a very valuable,
Not so loud.
yeah, it's a very valuable information. Very valuable information, and I feel very tempted to do our work for it. It is especially talking about the importance of the holy name. Many times the doubts comes because Krishna's holy name, service, everything is identical. But then why can't we do some service? Why to chant? Sometimes this type of thoughts come. And why can't we focus on the service, because it is much easier than fixing and chanting. But this clearly says, Bhakti Siddhanta Swami Maharaj, that the holy name
Includes.
every
And one of the slides, one of the messages was, when we say chanting the holy name, it's not just the sound, it's the service connected, which means the body, mind, words become connected. And that's part of chanting, because he doesn't make that distinction. The same, the effacing, the distinction is diminished. So the chanting of a holy name means all those things. So we say chanting the holy name, but it includes all those things, because they're also becoming gradually, at least, purified or effaced. Now, what was your question? You're just making a comment?
It's a thanks for your hard work. I know it is not so much information are collected, which is very rarely seen. I have not seen this type of information.
Okay, well,
So thank.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
okay. I'm just an instrument. It's nice being an instrument, but thank you for thanking. Go ahead. You're on.
Haribol. Actually, I didn't got when you said like Krishna reveals his like form according to the orientation of the heart. Like I didn't got what you meant by that. Can you please
Oh, I
explain?
didn't. It's not me. It's Bhakti Siddhanta.
Yeah. So I mean,
So you want to know what does it mean?
also I had one question before that. Like when he was saying that before Krishna revealing his form, we ourselves got to get to know that what we are.
Again, it's not me. It's Bhakti
Yeah,
Siddhanta. I'm just
I am
a tool,
correct.
an instrument of Bhakti Siddhanta. So Bhakti Siddhanta is saying, you know, he went towards the end or conclusion, and then he backtracked and said, before the form of the Supreme Lord is realized, there's realization of who we are. That's not like, you know, it's bifurcated. It's just it's connected. So who are you? We're part of something. To say who we are without the who we're part of is incomplete. So a sequential or chronological or natural flow is coverings removed. We can start to get a sense of who we are. And in that state of consciousness, then we can start to have a spiritual conception of who Krishna is. Supposing we don't have a clear idea of who we are, guaranteed we're going to have a material conception, at least mixed conception of Krishna. And that's all of us. But that's okay because we are where we are. Just recognize, be honest with recognize where we are. And then slowly, slowly to know more about who you are with as the coverings are effaced, the clarification, purification of the distinction between who we are and the coverings becomes gradually diminished. Their influence becomes gradually diminished. And then by Krishna's grace, it become revealed who we are. So what does it mean, if I understood your question correctly, what does it mean that the form of the Lord is revealed? It's revealed. Otherwise, factually or experientially, going to Durkheim's words, one can experience it. We can see, there's the deity form, there's Yasoda Damodar, there's paintings, and one can say, rightly so, they're none different. But we don't have that realization. Most of us don't, anyways. And so how does that realization or experience going to come? The coverings have to be dismantled and not like burn up the body or something, but the withdrawal of consciousness from the illusory sense of self. You still have the coverings, but spiritualize the coverings, and then one can sequentially understand who we are and experience the relationship, the form of Krishna, qualities of Krishna, pastimes of Krishna. So how do we get there? Sound. That was yesterday evening. Sound. I mean, I didn't get to finish, but the Mahamantra takes us there. And scripture. There's another teaching. The chanting of the process of chanting the holy name, Bhakti Siddhanta writes, includes Harikatha. Listen, just like we don't worship Krishna alone, we worship Krishna with Radha. Similarly, we don't just chant the holy name, we also hear scripture, Katha, Krishna Katha, along with Krishna Nam. That's Radha along with Krishna. So those are profound. It's an interesting concept, but as one progresses in spiritual life, one comes to understand that more because the coverings are diminished, purification, as you said, and then we can start to see, like his words, like in the heart, in the sun rising in the clear sky of one's heart. So it's poetic because it's now within our experience. That's what alliteration and metaphor and simile do. Something is beyond our experience. You describe something that's within our experience to give you an idea of that which is beyond our experience. So the form of the Lord becomes revealed into a course of time. And it's He who reveals His form. When and how and so forth. Is that satisfying?
Thank you.
Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I had this question about the soul getting impacted by the spiritual sound that we covered yesterday, because we mentioned about
By
how
material or spiritual sound?
spiritual sound.
Spiritual sound.
So the soul vibrates.
Yes.
And then today we saw how the mundane thoughts come in and they slacken chanting. So I'm trying to understand, although we have the desire to chant and the soul wants to vibrate, we need the soul to vibrate, but then the mundane thoughts seem to overpower that. So I'm trying to understand, why is that?
Why?
Meaning, why is the mind more powerful in the sense that we always get so easily attracted to something
We're
mundane?
attached. The power that's in the mind is because we're attached. We're attached to what? Attached to the concept or the mood that I want to enjoy. Parentheses, separate from Krishna. Close parentheses. So wanting to enjoy in relation to Krishna, that's spiritual. But our tendency is, and the mind included, but it's the soul's tendency is, we're awarded a mind, material mind, a covering, because of that strong desire, rebelliousness towards Krishna. Raga dvesha sabutena devandava mohena bharata. It's the soul's desire to be a separate enjoyer, very strong. Stains don't go away so easily. Strong tendency. Yes.
It's trying to validate my understanding, Maharaj. So you said based on one's orientation, um, either the Paramatma or the Bhagavan form would be revealed to an individual.
Well, you repeated what I said. To be more specific, Krishna speaks the same message to Uddhava in Uddhava Gita, but with more elaboration. Whatever is two-sided. Whatever is that form of the Lord that one feels affinity towards, one should worship that form. And Krishna shows himself according to one's affinity for him. It's love. It's reciprocation. It's how bhakti works. It's not one-sided, it's two-sided. And Krishna reciprocates accordingly.
And does the Paramatma stay with his soul until it's in a conditioned state? And does he leave the soul once the soul realizes the Bhagavan? Or does the Paramatma form continues to stay for eternity?
So you want to know, saying your question in a different way, is Paramatma in Goloka Vrindavan? One's affinity is Bhagavan, and specifically that form, or say Ayodhya, or some other place where the forms of the Lord are. So they're like Vaikuntha planets, where other eternal forms of the Lord are there, and is Paramatma also there? No, because the purpose, the function of Paramatma is described in Bhagavad Gita. Maya jakshena prakriti suyate. So He's guiding the living entity according to his desire and rewarding the living entity according to his desire and karma. But when one's desire is squeaky clean, absolutely focused on the Supreme Lord, the Paramatma function is no longer. It's direct. That's my understanding. If you come across some scriptural reference that says otherwise, let me know. That's my understanding. Okay, looks like that's it. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.